Hey guys, it's Skyler here from the Mint Change You Can Wear. Today what we're going to be doing is making your own homemade ring stretcher. I know not everyone has $200 or whatever it costs for these ones over here, so today we're going to show you how to make one for under $15. Okay, so here are the tools I'm using. First things first, we need a 1-inch piece of copper pipe. We're going to need a mandrel, of course, a Sharpie, a measuring tape out of a sewing kit, and a piece of paper. So what we're going to need to do first is make a mark all the way around it nice and level. So what I did with that was I just took a little piece of note paper that was square, and I squared it up at the bottom. It has 4 of these, I want to call them leaves. So that's what we're trying to make here. You can see we have 4 of them. So in order to do that, we need to make 4 marks all the way around here to mark out our 4 leaves nice and even. And the way I did that is I measured on the pipe, and it was about 3 3/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit less all the way around. So anyway, I divided it out and made 4 equal parts on this piece of paper. So those were, for mine, it was 14/16. And that wrapped around perfectly around the pipe, and that made 4 perfectly equidistant marks. So what we'll do is we'll start off with this is the bottom of the thing. So I wrapped it around and marked out my 4 equidistant leaves. So then from what I had to do there is we had to mark the same ones, the same spot up top. So all I did was sight it in just like a rifle and made 1 mark at the very top. Oh, that's another thing you have to do. You have to make sure that this is the same length as your mandrel where it starts to taper. So that's about 12 inches. I gave a little extra so I could have a little room to play with just in case at the top. So this one was about 12 inches, and I added about 1/4 of an inch at the top. So then what I did is I made that another equidistant mark at the top by measuring up from here 12 1/4 in a bunch of places. And then I made my paper go around, and then I made that mark at the top also. So there it was. Okay, so then once we have that established, you'll take it like this and kind of just sight in, just like you would a rifle, and then make another mark at the same spot on the pipe. Once you have that done, you'll take your paper again that we marked, 14/16, and then line it up. And actually I did it here. I made my marks exactly in the same place as on the bottom, right? So once that's done, we want to actually have the taper to come in the exact middle of those marks. So then I made taller marks by just turning the paper and then marking them in the middle. So I have my 4 middle center marks. So now the next step is take those middle marks and go to each side of these marks down here to make a triangle. So we make 4 triangles all the way around, and that's the next step. Okay, so those marks have been made now. You can see I just marked from this point all the way up to the top, and I actually decided as I started doing it that you really don't want it to come to a point. So I left it to about 3/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch at the top, something like that. So you have about 1/4 of an inch or maybe a little bit more at the top that it comes to. That's what the real one does. So those have all been marked all the way around and ready to cut out. And the way I mark those, best way is just have a helper help you too, by the way, is you just have someone hold the marks where you want them, and then someone else can mark them. So once that's done, we're going to go ahead and start cutting out these leaves. Okay, so there it is. This is right after cutting it. I used a regular grinder with a hand grinder with a metal cutting blade on it. I'm sure you could use a Dremel with a little metal wheel on it. Probably just take a ton of those little attachments. Or if you don't have that, I don't know, I'm sure there's some other way of doing it. Find a friend who has one though. Grinder's the way to go. So there's that. Now all we got to do is clean it up a little bit. There's some sharp edges and whatnot inside. Clean them up with a little file, and then we should be on our way. Okay, here it is after I've cleaned it up a little bit. I'm sure there's a little bit down here at the bottom I couldn't quite get to. But there it is. I put a little rubber band at the top to just keep it together. And you can see the mandrel fits right in there. Not too much extra room to spare, which is perfect. And you start shoving it up, it'll start to stretch. So the next step is to attach this to a 2x4. That is what we're going to do next. Okay, so what we have here now is I drilled a hole in this 2x4 with a hole saw, and then I got the base of it to go through it, and then I cut about 4 or 5 marks in it to in order to fold these over. So what's going to happen is you want this to go in the hole, and you want the cuts that we made for the taper to go below the hole a little bit. So just not too much. And so now what we have is the cut marks are just below the 2x4 here. And then I made a mark on this side and then cut those splines to meet up with the bottom of the 2x4. And the next thing we're going to do is bend these over and then screw them to the 2x4. Okay, well, there you go. Here's the finished product now. At the bottom you can see I flared those out and then I cut the excess off with a grinder, and I used these self-tapping screws to attach it to the board. Okay, so now I've had some time to actually use this tool and run it through its paces. What I found out is the curve on the leaves here are a little too straight in order to get a ring to go down it and have the right curve to it. So what you really need to do in order to get using it is make a ring or two and just hammer them down the mandrel and use the thing. And then that way you'll get rid of all the sharp edges. You're going to get rid of the sides that aren't curved quite right. And then once you get done with that, it'll actually be ready to use for a good ring. So you're going to actually have to waste, a quarter, maybe a $50 to get it all the way down the mandrel once or twice. Once you do that, you'll be ready to go. So here's how you actually use it. You go ahead and insert your mandrel, put your ring on, and what you should do is bring it to where the leaves come together pretty much, just like that. And then once you have it like that, push the mandrel the rest of the way in, and then hammer it down with a mallet. So once you get it hammered down, you'll go ahead and hammer it off, with that, so you can loosen up the mandrel enough to get it back out. So once you've done that, you'll check the size and then repeat, and you'll bring it down and down further down the mallet or down the mandrel. And you can see where I have done it, it's starting to curve and look pretty decent. And where I haven't done it yet, you can see right down here. Here's been finished pretty much. And down here I haven't got anything down it yet, and it's still got the wrong curve to it. And above has the wrong curve to it because you really don't use that part of it unless you're doing a smaller coin than a quarter. So once you have that pretty much conditioned, I suppose, you'll be ready to send down, good coin rings. They won't get marred on the inside or anything. But yeah, it's a really good tool once you have it conditioned and ready to go. So here's the homemade ring stretcher. Is it going to really replace a really wonderful, expensive, ring sizer like a Kagan or even a Pepe or even a Chinese one? No, of course not. But what it will do is it'll allow you to make a ring at home, very minimal cost, and you can do a couple on it with a little extra work, but they'll come out looking more professional this way.